Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, lawmg.com. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching in Indiana and around the world. education.indiana.edu. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. INDOT wants to close State Road 37 in Martinsville for much of 2021. Whether that's good or bad, it depends on who you ask.
I think that's a question that everybody downtown's been talking about.
Ahead, we'll look at what it could mean for Martinsville. Plus, nothing says fall like Persimmons in Indiana. Folks from all over the state are heading to Mitchell to celebrate the local fruit. And proposed wind farm projects in central Indiana are facing opposition because of health worries.
I mean, it may come to the point where we have to say, we have to move.
But researchers say there isn't enough evidence to say wind turbines make us sick. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. The state's plan to expedite construction of Interstate 69's final stretch won't be easy. The Indiana Department of Transportation wants to close State Road 37 in Martinsville for the 2021 construction season. Unlike the section of the project that runs through Bloomington, there is an alternate route people can take to get to Indianapolis if that happens. But as Barbara Brozier reports, Morgan County residents disagree on whether that's a good thing.
It's lunchtime in downtown Martinsville, and just as many people stop at Come and Get It for the food as they do for the local gossip.
Everybody knows everybody because it's such a small town.
And this week, there's a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, it's going to kill us.
She's talking about the state's plan to close part of State Road 37 to through traffic as it builds Interstate 69. Florence Critchfield and her friends meet for lunch at a different restaurant in Martinsville every Tuesday. And they're worried about how the closure could affect that tradition.
How are we supposed to get to Indies or Taco Bell or Arby's or any of those over there if it's closed?
The Indiana Department of Transportation unveiled the idea this week at Martinsville High School. It's the biggest of several possible changes to the project. Under the plan, the state would redirect traffic to State Roads 39 and 67, while 37 through Martinsville is closed in 2021.
All of the local east-west roads will stay open, and that option allows us to do the mainline construction as quickly as possible and do it as safely as possible.
That's in line with the governor's plan to speed up the overall completion date of Section 6 by 3 years. But multiple delays with the stretch of I-69 from Bloomington to Martinsville has Section 5 nearly 2 years behind schedule. That makes some Martinsville residents question whether the 37 closure will really only last one construction season.
I want to know that when they hire these contractors, is there something that's going to be put into place so that if they don't finish manage in a record time or in the time that they are allotted, they should be getting penalties and losing money.
And there are concerns about what it will mean for businesses along 37, which get lots of customers who are just passing through town.
I'm just heartsick over the whole thing.
But several business owners in the heart of downtown Martinsville are more optimistic. The planned detour would take drivers past a major local road that goes right downtown. It's one of several INDOT plans to improve in order to accommodate increased traffic. And Sam Neal thinks that could be good for a business like his.
People come in here all the time and say, well, I didn't even know you was here. And no matter how much advertising you can do, there's nothing that compares to drive by and see a store and I didn't know that was there. Gee, we need to stop there.
If people do stop, downtown business owners think they'll be surprised by what they see. Millions of dollars are pouring into a revitalization project on the square, which includes rehabbing several buildings.
We have a few more restaurants. Right now we have 5 downtown. And they're going to start on looking at retail.
Some see it as Martinsville's way of reinventing itself as it gets ready for the major changes that come with the new interstate. Although no one can seem to agree on whether the project will help or hurt the community. But business owners say much of that fate depends on the people who live here.
And as long as Martinsville markets itself correctly, it should actually bring people off of the interstate. And that's what we're trying to do with the downtown project that we've got going now.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier.
The state is getting the money to accelerate construction on Section 6 from a 35% fee increase imposed on truckers who use Indiana's toll road. The Indiana Finance Authority approved the $1 billion deal this week. The state will get the $1 billion over 3 installments starting next month. The rate hike only applies to commercial trucks. Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brozier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Indiana's Secretary of State is hosting sessions across the state to talk to people about how they can protect themselves from cyber attacks. The meetings take place each election cycle to look at things such as campaign finance laws. But Secretary of State Connie Lawson says the cybersecurity component is new this year.
We know that in the past, certain campaigns have been hacked. For an example, just recently, Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri found out that she had some unfriendly traffic on her campaign site.
Lawson says the state has also been working to ensure the statewide voter registration system is secure. She says the Department of Homeland Security does a cyber hygiene test every other week. And she says voting machines are not connected to the internet as a precaution. 59 children in Indiana died in 2016 as a result of abuse or neglect. That's down from 77 children in 2015. According to a state report, vehicles were involved in most of the 35 neglect cases. The most common cause of deaths from abuse relate to head trauma. Indiana Supreme Court Chief Justice Loretta Rush says she's encouraged by progress shown in a new type of specialty court. She says family recovery courts provide greater oversight and collaboration to keep kids and their families together whenever possible.
Some judges meet with their family recovery courts on a weekly basis. The judge is actually working with the service providers in the DCS.
Indiana has 7 family recovery courts with 4 more in the planning stages. The Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend released the names of 17 former priests and 1 former deacon who have been credibly accused of sexually abusing minors. A total of 63 allegations are cited, dating back to 1922. 8 of the accused are now dead. 10 others have been removed from the ministry, and 2 are incarcerated. Top White House staff joined Second Lady Karen Pence in Wayne County this week, highlighting a new workplace drug rehabilitation program. Pence says the Pathways to Employment program in place at the Belden Electric Cable Plant is one part of the solution to the opioid epidemic.
Instead of turning your back on people battling drug addictions, Belden is coming alongside and providing an opportunity for that employee to get help and recover.
Belden is located in an area that's been hit hard by the opioid epidemic. About 10% of job applicants were failing drug tests. Under the program, even if an applicant fails a drug test, the company offers them treatment with the promise of a job when they complete it. Businesses that don't consider the environment are taking unnecessary risks. That's according to Karen Lutz of engineering and environmental consulting firm TRC Solutions. Lutz says businesses today are facing pressure from customers and investors to not only follow environmental rules, but also to reduce their carbon footprint.
It's something to be responsive to, and what happens is, in our age of social media, I think these things travel so quickly.
Lutz says businesses also need to be mindful of climate issues like severe weather and not rely on outdated floodplain maps when they build. The city of Bloomington is going ahead with another deer cull at Griffey Lake Nature Preserve, but this time it's led by local hunters. The city council voted this week to amend the city's hunting and firearm laws to allow an organized cull with local hunters instead of an outside firm like last year's cull. Hunts are tentatively scheduled to run from mid-November through early December. Those, of course, Joe, though, don't tackle the urban deer problem that Bloomington is also grappling with.
Barbara, thank you very much. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk, we head to Lawrence County, where the Persimmon Festival offers a slice of local life, and how Purdue researchers are helping the Indiana State Police clear traffic accidents in a lot less time. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU WFIU news team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU WFIU news team is where you are and telling your story.
In a time of change, where can you find in-depth reporting and thoughtful analysis? Washington Week on PBS. Join moderator Robert Costa.
When I was at the Capitol this week, I encountered the same.
And a panel of award-winning journalists.
You're seeing a divided nation, and you're seeing
for insights and perspective.
Tonight there was a key development in the Senate.
You won't find anywhere else.
What a week.
Washington Week.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Two companies planning to build wind farms in central Indiana are facing opposition because of health concerns. It's not uncommon for wind farm projects to be contested. There are at least 7 groups in the state that either oppose wind turbines in their counties or want stricter ordinances. But there's not a lot of research that definitely links turbines to negative health outcomes. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Rebecca Thiel reports on what scientists have to say.
Mariah Mershon's 7-year-old son, Jameson, has Dravet syndrome.
You ready?
A rare form of epilepsy. A lot of things can trigger a seizure for him. Overstimulation, extreme temperatures, sounds, flashing lights. Mershon says they've done a lot of work to make their home a safe space for him.
We had some trees in the front yard. Well, when the sun would set in the evening, it would shine through into this room. And when the wind would blow, the branches would move, and that was enough to set him off into a seizure. So my husband had to cut the trees down.
But these open fields near Mershon's country home could soon be dotted with wind turbines. 2 wind companies are planning projects in Montgomery County, and Mershon worries shadow flicker, a kind of strobe effect from wind turbine shadows, could be another trigger.
It may come to the point where we have to say, we have to move.
Other residents are worried about less severe symptoms, like sleeplessness, headaches, ears ringing, dizziness, and nausea, something often called wind turbine syndrome. Though few reputable reports show any link between wind turbines and health, there are some areas that could use more long-term study. Let's start with shadow flicker. This is a video taken from a resident who lives near a single turbine owned by West Central School Corporation in Pulaski County. According to the Epilepsy Society, there's a possibility this strobe effect could trigger a seizure for 3% of epileptics.
But one of the worst contexts is where the turbine blade shadow covers a window, cuts across a window, because then the illumination of a room, regardless of where you are in that room, is fluctuating. And that can be very disturbing, not only for people with epilepsy, but everybody else.
Whether or not someone with photosensitive epilepsy has a seizure from shadow flicker depends on a host of factors. In general, Wilkins says said person would have to stand fairly close to the turbine and look at it during sunrise or sunset hours. His research shows the person would be most at risk standing within the restricted safety distance for most turbines, which for a 500-foot tall turbine would be about 550 feet. But under the right circumstances, they could still have a seizure, even if they were 50,000 feet away, more than 9 miles. Wilkins says a highly sensitive person like Jameson Mershon would likely be affected if a wind turbine were nearby. Another main concern people have about wind farms is infrasound, the low-frequency sound that a wind turbine gives off as it turns. A lot of things in our world make infrasound, from household appliances and cars to ocean waves and even our own heartbeat. Amir Farbood co-authored one of the first peer-reviewed articles on infrasound and wind turbines. He says it's clear wind turbines produce infrasound, and that exposure to infrasound could affect how the inner ear works.
But what you cannot do is put 2 and 2 together and make 5. You cannot say infrasound from wind turbines causes wind turbine syndrome, because there isn't the clinical evidence out there to make that conclusion.
But some researchers say just the act of worrying about wind farms can cause health problems.
We have an expression, someone's worried sick about something, and that's what can happen. If you're experiencing anxiety, you can manifest that anxiety in physically measurable symptoms.
Chapman says it can affect things like your heart rate, blood pressure, and how you sleep. Erin Baker is a senior development manager with Apex Clean Energy, one of the wind companies hoping to build a wind farm in Montgomery County. She's set up in an office in Crawfordsville, where Baker says she makes herself available to hear resident concerns.
We do take all their concerns, no matter who they are, very seriously. And so I think transparency and communication is the biggest thing that we've been trying to do.
But Baker says at the end of the day, any kind of business is bound to have some sort of impact on residents nearby. That's unlikely to comfort Mariah Mershon and her family.
We're for green energy. It's just, I don't want something that's harmful to my son right next to my house.
Both wind companies say they're still leasing land from interested parties and haven't decided where the turbines will go. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
7 architects are waiting for county and city leaders to move forward with the Monroe County Convention Center expansion. But controversy surrounding the status of the proposed hotel developer is holding up the $72 million project. The stalemate is between county and city leaders over whether Sun Development's Embassy Suites should receive the bid as the private hotel developer. Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton says the request seeking developers was before the food and beverage tax went into effect, and only 2 parties responded.
The county did a process to find a partner of the hotel to help them determine whether or not a convention center could theoretically be built. And the answer is yes, it can be built.
The Monroe County Commissioners issued the request for qualifications April 5th, 2017. Hamilton says the hotel partner should be a joint decision between the county and city. Advisory Commission member John Weichart says the city was a part of that process.
Mick Reneisen, the deputy mayor, has been on the Advisory Commission from its inception, has been involved in the negotiations with the Embassy Suites Hotel, and has been the mayor's active representative in this process for 18 months.
Weichart says the project was never up to the city. It's been a county project all along.
I respectfully disagree with his characterization of the situation. The convention center would be paid for by the city, essentially, through the food and beverage tax that comes to the city.
It's inaccurate. The county council passed the food and beverage tax. The mayor committed the city's portion of the food and beverage tax to the expansion project, and the city council passed a resolution in support of that commitment.
Weichart also says the county doesn't need the mayor's permission to lease its land to build a hotel. But Hamilton says the hotel location hasn't been decided.
We have multiple hoteliers, terrific ones, including one who we've already heard from, who want to do this. And the city's view is we need a good process to identify that hotelier.
Who is it who's going to come in? The Hilton's not going to compete against itself. The Hyatt won't compete against itself. The Marriott's not interested. Who is this? And they certainly have not come forward to either the Advisory Commission or the County Commissioners.
The project has been on hold since early August until county and city leaders agree on a new memorandum of understanding on how they should collaborate on the project. After an accident, traffic can sometimes be gridlocked for hours. Tyler Lake reports on a partnership between Purdue researchers and the Indiana State Police that aims to get traffic flowing a lot sooner.
If you've ever sat in line behind a traffic accident and wondered, what's taking so long? Well, Lieutenant Robert Hange can tell you.
When we have a serious bodily injury crash or a fatal crash, the investigation will close that road down for several hours.
That's because of how they assess crash sites.
Our methods of using close range photogrammetry with our camera systems that we have in place at the Sheriff's Department causes us to keep that roadway closed down while we take that photographic evidence.
That shutdown can be an inconvenience for drivers, but what worries police is that it can be hazardous. They say closing down roads for long periods of time means a greater chance of a driver plowing into cars waiting for the site to be cleared.
Secondary crashes are a significant risk factor when you have the road closed, and if you can reduce the road closure, you're going to reduce that risk of secondary crashes by a factor of 24.
So with the help of new technology and some folks at Purdue University, Hange says they can make crash site assessments safer, more accurate, and faster.
With the UAV technology, again, we can shoot a scene, for example, an 800-foot scene that we recently had. We shot that entire scene in a matter of 22 minutes.
With relatively little input by an emergency responder, the drones can create a grid to document the entire scene, down to the smallest details. And after responders bring the drone back down to Earth, they take the footage to researchers at Purdue, who are able to process the picture to create this. These 3D printed crash scenes show just exactly how much information can be gathered by the drones. The images are more accurate and provide far more detail than any previous crash site assessment technology. Bullock says he's happy with how well the system is performing. So, what's next?
I think now the next step is how do we work together to scale this so it's used broadly throughout the state.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Tyler Lake.
French Lake Resort is spending $17 million to add 56 new rooms. Officials from the Cook Group, the resort's parent company, say they'll likely hire more than 100 new employees.
We've always looked at the economy, we've always looked at jobs, and we hope to be a catalyst in that, in bringing people here, just attracting people here to South Central Indiana.
Construction is underway and is expected to wrap up in the fall of 2019. In southern Indiana, it's a sign that fall is approaching when persimmons start to drop from their trees. It happens for a few weeks every September. Reporter Barbara Brozier joins us now. And Barbara, there's actually an entire week dedicated to celebrating the fruit.
There is, Joe. The Mitchell Persimmon Festival kicks off tomorrow. It features everything from a pageant to a persimmon pudding contest. And part of the fruit's appeal is that southern Indiana is one of the few places where you can find it.
When Scott and Ashley Ratkovich bought this Christmas tree farm in Fayetteville, something else came with it.
We love our persimmons around here.
There are at least 9 persimmon trees on the property. Once they start dropping their fruit, the family collects persimmons twice a day to turn into pulp.
And as soon as I post, I have a list of people that want it. So we never actually have persimmon pulp ready. We have people on a wait list waiting for it.
The variety that grows here is known as the common persimmon, and you don't have to look very hard to find one. There's something in the soil and climate that allows the trees to thrive in this part of Indiana.
Diospyros virginiana, and it's just a persimmon that is native to the Virginias, Carolinas, and the area that stretches back from the eastern coast all the way to Missouri and just forms a big U down into Tennessee and up into northern Indiana.
The fruit is so beloved in this region that the small town of Mitchell dedicates an entire week to celebrating persimmons.
There'll be 35,000 people in Mitchell on a good parade day.
People from all over the state flood the normally quiet streets, and many of them come for one thing: the food.
People around here, they make just about anything out of them. You know, persimmon pudding is probably the most well-known, but there's persimmon cakes, there's persimmon cookies, persimmon ice cream.
It's what draws many Mitchell natives back to the community every year. Scott grew up there before buying his farm, and he doesn't miss a year.
I'm actually taking the Friday before off, so I have to take my kids down, and it's a big family event for us.
There are many farm stands in Lawrence County that sell persimmon pulp, but for 3 decades, a local woman named Dimple Green canned the pulp and shipped it all over the world. I also learned while doing this story that many people believe persimmon seeds can predict how bad of a winter we'll see. And Joe, you have to cut the seed in half, and whatever the shape of the kernel is, that tells you whether we're going to have a bad winter or a good one. It was a spoon this year, which people say, think spoon, think shovel. That means we're supposed to get a lot of snow. And a lot of people around here believe that.
Now, people don't know that you're a good baker, though. Have you ever done persimmon stuff?
I have. I usually put butterscotch on top of mine, which is very controversial because it's not traditional.
Can't wait to have some, though. It sounds good. That's the end of this program. Our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, lawmg.com. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching in Indiana and around the world. education.indiana.edu. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.